In the Clive Barker Podcast, longtime fans Ryan and Jose interview guests, bring you the news, and take deep dives into Barker-related stuff. In episode 477, Ryan and Jose are joined by comic writer Brandon Seifert to talk Hellraiser comics, Witch Doctor, Godzilla, The Fly, and we commiserate a little on growing up in Fairbanks, Alaska. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime friend of Clive and advocate of his art, but Don's unique and inspiring paintings are for sale, and over 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. There's even a paver in Washington, D.C. representing Celebrate Imagination. We're thrilled that this worthy cause is sponsoring our podcast again this year, and we hope that you'll consider looking over his Pinterest page and commissioning a painting of your own. For commissions, Don requires no money down, and there will be no obligation on your part. You can also head over to the Etsy shop to buy one of his books, like A Chimney Sweep's Tale, Celebrate Imagination, or The Imaginaries. Follow the link in the show notes, or click on the side banner, and let's see what's new with Don Bertram today. On Don Bertram's Facebook page, take a look at The Truth Behind It All, The Sun Watchers, and The Descendant. In Don's newsletter, the following paintings might still be available: The Family, Puppy Love Snoopy, Stargazer, The King, Puppy Love 2, and The Ascendant. Also check out his videos going over the original painting, The Bug Brothers by Clive Barker, and his intro to the 35th anniversary screening of Hellraiser. Of course, the best way to support this podcast is through our Patreon at patreon.com/BarkerCast589. Our subscribers will get exclusive access to content not available anywhere else, like our Collector's Corner video series, rare Barker videos, and early behind-the-scenes stuff. Plus, backers in the $10 tier will also be able to choose an episode topic, and we might mail you something once in a while, depending on your location. Our supporters also get access to the exclusive channel in our Discord server. We'll be forever grateful if you consider helping us out and subscribing to our Patreon. So what's new on Patreon? The Clive Barker Podcast would like to thank our sponsors: David Anderson, Eric Vanderholt, Daniel Elvin, Amanda Stewart, Bradley Gartz, and our continuing sponsor, Don Bertram from Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Our sponsors will get to see the newest video, Don Bertram Presents Clive Barker Art Photos of the Late 1990s. And this is a really cool patron exclusive, where Don Bertram goes over Best Color Gallery Barker prints. Welcome. This is episode 477 of the Clive Barker Podcast, and we have a special guest today, Brandon Seifert. Welcome, Brandon. It's good to have you on here.
Thank you. It is good to be here.
So go ahead.
I was just going to say, among other things, you've written for the Hellraiser comics. We did a few episodes reading through those comics. You've written for Witch Doctor for Image Comics, and you've also done work for IDW Publishing, right? With Doctor Who comics and Godzilla comic.
Yep, yeah. Got Doctor Who, 2 issues of Doctor Who, 1 issue of Godzilla, and then I did a 5-issue sequel to The Fly, the Cronenberg.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that one, I was on a lot of medications at the time, and they didn't, very well. So I had a brand new medication side effect. I started getting migraines one month, just 3 to 5 times a week, and they affected my deadline. So every month on that, there was some new exciting medication side effect that got in the way of me actually getting it done.
That's no fun.
Unfortunately, not my best work, but
I am joined today by a K9.
Nice.
As well. Big Whovian fan over here.
Nice.
And so thank you so much for joining us. And we were hoping to talk to you a little bit about your comic book work and how you got started with the Hellraiser. So was your first comic book Witch Doctor?
It was, yeah. Witch Doctor is how I broke in. So Witch Doctor, for those of your listeners who don't know, is it's a horror medical drama comic. It was published by Skybound Entertainment, which is Robert Kirkman's imprint at Image Comics. And it's sort of we always described it as Dr. House meets Doctor Strange. So you've got this brilliant jerk doctor who loses his medical license and ends up as a mage who has to save the world, except he's still a jerk and he's still using his medical training for it. So he's looking at symptoms, and he's, looking at, making diagnoses and, treating the problem, and, has a very kind of rigorous approach that he uses.
I love all the characters that show up in the comic, all the monsters that show up, all the mystical conditions that happen. I was just reading a few comics from that series today, and I was having a lot of fun with that. And the art was really beautiful too. Lucas, right?
Yeah, Lucas Kettner.
Yeah,
he's excellent. He did he recently did a book for DC, the Silent Night 2, I think, which is Santa, the superhero version of Santa teaming up with Batman.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to check it out yet, but everything that I've seen from it looks fantastic. It looks so good.
So is Witch Doctor an ongoing comic series, or is it did it have a limited run?
Witch Doctor, we did a couple limited series. We did a one-shot, and then we did a 4-issue miniseries, and then we did another one-shot, and then a 6-issue miniseries. And we tried to keep going after that, but it was just a lot of internal struggles and struggles with our publisher, and it just kind of collapsed under its own weight after a certain number of years. And we tried to get a third volume off the ground a couple times, and I had like so many years worth of stories for it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that it's amazing the amount of creatures that were showing up. The tapestry of the storyline was always so full of things going on in the background. And I was reading today the story of when he gets infected by a strigoi, and that reminded me of that parasite that replaces the tongue of a fish, and then it just comes up and eats whatever the fish is eating. And Dr. Vincent Morrow, that's the name of the witch doctor. And he, at one point, is so desperate to get rid of that infection that he contacts some surgeons from a different dimension, which I thought was a great nod to the Hellraiser Cenobites. That was a very pleasant surprise.
The surgeons were super fun to write because it was just me doing what would the witch doctor, like the medical horror version of Cenobites be? And what do they want to do? Well, they can the line in the comic is they can cure anything, even death.
Right.
And that's because they are feeding on your suffering. And if they can keep you alive indefinitely, then there's more suffering to feed off of.
So that's how they got so good at keeping people alive and solving every sort of medical issue, because they need to milk away all your pain.
Exactly.
That was amazing. That was so funny when they show up and oh, you're suffering from male pattern baldness. We can fix that.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun to write because they're very single-minded. They're just listing his medical problems and saying, we can fix you. And he's like, I don't. And at one point, they mentioned that he has a serious illness, and he just cuts them off and doesn't hear what it is because So that was. They
just keep putting out things like, oh, you got influenza, we can fix that. You've got this and that, we can fix that. That was super fun. I'm actually really getting into Witch Doctor. The first thing I saw from you was the Hellraiser comics, but I'm glad that I got into the Witch Doctor because I feel like I got a lot to go through here, and I love the characters. They're really amazing.
I read the Godzilla from Hell series, but now I want to read the Witch Doctor also.
Yeah.
It's the one that of the stuff that I've done, there's some that I have a lot of trouble rereading my work. I'm by far my own worst critic. And so I'm not actually prepared for this podcast today. I've not actually reread those comics in at least 10 years.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see how I do. My memory for them is usually pretty good, but there'll be things that you bring up that I'm I have no memory of that whatsoever.
Oh, it's okay.
But yeah, I absolutely can't reread my own work, but I like Witch Doctor. I like rereading that.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of Hellraiser, what was it that got you involved in making the Hellraiser comics?
I can't remember if I cold emailed them shortly after Witch Doctor, the first volume, Witch Doctor came out. It would have been after the collection. And I can't remember if I cold emailed them or if, as I was about to cold email them, I got an email from the editor on the series. Because they'd read Witch Doctor, I hadn't sent them any copies or anything, but they read it and they liked it. They thought
Was that Mark Miller?
In this case, it was the guys at Boom. It was Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, and I ended up getting to know Mark and Ben Mears, Clive's assistant at the time, really pretty well through that. But at the time, it was Chris Rosa. They just hired me initially to do the
annual number one.
It was the annual. The writer that they'd had lined up for it, something had happened. I don't know what. So if you look at the solicit, it talks about the Cenobite War begins here. It's like, no, it really doesn't. It's the annual that I wrote was like this smaller story about like Frank Cotton and
yes, right, yeah,
and I'm blanking on his
Kirsty.
name now. Yeah,
it was Elliot Spencer.
Spencer,
yeah.
Elliot Spencer.
So it was like Spencer on Earth trying to build a power base, and starting with Frank Cotton and how badly that went.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that was a good
and then
one.
You went on to write, I think it was The Road Below, and then after that, in 2013, it was The Dark Watch, the 12-issue series.
That's right.
Yeah, which pitted different kinds of hell against each other, and really opened up a lot of mythology on that one. Were you a fan of, I mean, this is kind of an obvious question, but I guess you were a fan of the Hellraiser franchise before working on the comics. How did that affect or influence your approach on the series?
So I got into Clive's work in high school, like towards the end of high school. Like it and Lovecraft were my first two like horror loves. And both of them I love them for different reasons, but I also love them for their world building and just like the texture of the worlds, which you can see in like Witch Doctor and things like that I've done. But Hellraiser was like my favorite part of Clive's stuff. And then my second favorite part was like the Books of Blood and all the little hints of hell and the different hells and like, very different demons that still seem kind of a piece because it's Clive. And in the Dark Watch, so I co-wrote the Dark Watch with Clive, but when I say I co-wrote it with Clive, I never ended up having any direct communication with him. What I got was his outline for the series, which was like 3/4 of a page. And it was about hell has discovered another dimension, and this other dimension has a hell. And so they go to war with the other dimension's hell. And like, that sounds super cool and such, like a Clive idea. I would have a lot of trouble pulling that off. What if there are different levels of hell, like Dante's Inferno kind of stuff, and they try to invade another hell that is inspired by the other kinds of demons that we've seen in the Books of Blood and Clive's other stories, except we can't say the Rapparee is in this issue.
Right. Butterfield
and
shows up.
And Chit-Chat.
Well. Yeah, that was so cool to see those characters from different stories go in there. And even in The Road Below, there's two families that are they like supposed to be Nightbreed or
one of them
World tribes?
Yeah, one of them is Nightbreed and the other is Sirkine, and it's like
that's it, Sirkine.
Oh, okay.
And I couldn't directly reference either one of them, but like one of the main characters in it has the menstruum from Weave World.
That's right. Mm-hmm. The daughter of that the woman that killed one of the Nethercoats family members. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was, and she ends up becoming. Oh, spoilers! She ends up getting some powers from Hell, striking a Faustian bargain with Hell with the Kirsty Pinhead. Which was.
And I wish that I probably could have followed up on that in Dark Watch. And now I wish I had. I think it would have made logical sense to pick up that plot thread and include that character. At the time, it felt self-aggrandizing because this was my character, and like I've seen that so many times in comics where you introduce a new character and then that writer is just putting that character in all over the place, whether it makes sense or not. But this is a situation where it would have made sense as like logical build up to this story.
Yeah. Well, and one thing, and to that point, one thing that we've talked about on the, on our podcast about the Hellraiser comics is that up to the Dark Watch and the Road Below, there was a little bit of a problem of switching writers all the time, and that one writer would put a thread out there, and the next writer would say, "Well, that's not important to me. This is what I want to do." And so there was a little bit of a disjointedness in the first 20 Hellraiser comics from Boom until you were there as kind of a more stable presence, like you were the writer for all of those comics all the way from through those both of those series, which we appreciated, being able to see that those plot threads following all the way through without another writer coming in and taking over and saying, well, this is really what I want to talk about.
Yeah. And that was honestly that was part of my personal mission on the book, was to give it some stability and to take as much of what had already been established, and some of it, because you had tonal clashes between different writers or continuity clashes between different writers, I wanted to figure out why things were going on, why things had gone down the way they were. And so in one of the earlier issues, Kirsty, first you've got Elliot Spencer as Pinhead, and Elliot has no memories of his human life. And then you have Kirsty as Pinhead, and Kirsty remembers who she was as a person.
Right.
And then you have Harry D'Amour as a Pinhead, and he also remembers who he was as a person. But he's a detective, and he's going, wait, why are we different from Spencer? What do we have in our human personalities that are important to Leviathan?
Yeah.
And I didn't know this at the time. I was later told by Seraphim Films, by the guys who were at Seraphim at the time, that they really liked this. This was the fact that I was connecting the dots and figuring out, noticing these inconsistencies and then explaining why they were the case and making it sound like they had been bland the whole time. This was one of the things they really liked about my writing on the series.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I particularly enjoyed the Dark Watch because of the whole conflict with Hell, and seeing all those different characters show up in the background, or even, not just the background, but the idea that there was another, because ever since I started reading Hellraiser comics and reading the novels and watching the movies, it's always been oh, they call it Hell, but it's not really Hell. It's more like another dimension and blah, blah, blah. And so this kind of made us understand a little more how all that stuff would mingle in the comic world. So there would be the demonic Hell, and I like the when people start introducing the glyphs and the spells and things that would make the Cenobites vulnerable, and how the Pinhead's pins are actually kind of almost like a crown or a source of his power, and all that stuff. That was really good world building, and I appreciated that a lot. And those demons in the Dark Watch with their grasshopper bodies, they were just tremendously scary.
Yeah, those were really cool. I really liked how those turned out.
That was a hell of fury, right? I think, and violence. Yeah,
I think that's how we turned it, and it was Leviathan's hell, which is a hell of desire, of going overboard with desire, then tries to invade another hell, but it's the wrath, fury hell, and they're completely outgunned, which was really fun to write.
And then after the Hellraiser comics, was that when you started writing for Doctor Who, or?
I think I did the first annual. I also did a short story in the Dark Watch annual. And Ben Mears, who's Clive's assistant, did the main story in that. Ben's a very good friend of mine. He's an associate editor at Dark Horse. Last I talked to him, I don't know if he's got promotions, but yeah, not Dark Horse. I'm sorry, DC. Just on autopilot. But yeah, associate editor at DC. Unless he's gotten a promotion, in which case, congratulations, Ben. But so I did that annual, the first annual, and then I did, based on the strength of that, and I really put my all into that first annual, because I was I don't know, this is both a calling card for me trying to get more work for them, and I really, really first horror loves, really want to do more of this. But also, this may be my only opportunity to do a Hellraiser story, so I want to do something that really interests me and that I really am into. And based on the strength of that, I got to do The Road Below. They asked me to pitch a miniseries. And I was like, well, the only miniseries pitch that I really have would pull in concepts and, peoples from other Clive stuff that I don't know if you have the rights to. And they're like, it's okay. It can be a separate thing that just looks similar to
Sure.
Weave World and Cabal, Nightbreed. And then it turns out Clive really likes it when other people draw connections between his different works that he hadn't seen before. So that, I think, helped me get Dark Watch. And then in the middle of that, around when I was doing Road Below, is when I did the 2 issues of Doctor Who. And it's funny, I just went back the other night and started rewatching the 11th Doctor episodes on Doctor Who. And I was like, oh, yeah, I see why I was completely in love with this at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I've grew up with a little bit of Doctor Who. Mostly, I think the first one I started watching was some reruns with Tom Baker, the 4th Doctor.
Yeah.
Hence my little canine right here. I like to bring that up. Yeah, I think it's like 50 years today that it was the first appearance of Tom Baker in the Doctor Who series. And after that, I remember when they really brought out, the breakout Doctor Who with Eccleston, right? That was kind of like a big renewal of Doctor Who, of the Doctor Who show with Christopher Eccleston, which really kind of broke it to a lot of new generations. But yeah, so who's your favorite Doctor, just out of curiosity?
My favorite Doctor is Tennant. I really like a number of them. I like Ncuti. I've only seen one of his episodes, but he's fantastic.
Yeah.
I really like Matt Smith, but it was always like the Matt Smith Doctor and the David Tennant Doctor had a lot in common, where they were both they were the young guys in suits, and they're both kind of goofy, but just in different ways. So for me, he always kind of lived in the shadow of Tennant to a degree. And then Peter Capaldi was great. I didn't check out much of Josie Whittaker, but I want to go back and rewatch these or watch them for the first time now.
Yeah, I think I got to catch up because I think I stopped at around Capaldi and I got to catch up on that.
Yeah,
I did too. I think the place I was watching them, they disappeared off of there, and then I felt lost.
One of my favorite ones, I think, with Tennant was that Titanic thing, the one where the cruise ship, the Titanic, and then that was a great one. Yeah.
I always like the episodes of Doctor Who that I show people are like to get them into the show are both Tennant ones. It's The Girl in the Fireplace and Blink.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the Weeping Angel statue. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which kind of gives them an unrealistic expectation about how
sure
level of the show is usually at. And then I show them a giant space wasp who's fallen in love with Agatha Christie or something like that, just to balance it out a bit.
When you go into the older ones, I mean, I watch Pluto TV all the time. They have a channel that plays nothing but Doctor Who 24 hours a day, and I like to just sometimes catch some of those old ones where it's like, oh, it's beginning of the Cyberman, or it's the Daleks, the origin of the Daleks, or something like that. And they're always super fun to sit down and just watch that. It just takes me back to a simpler time, which it was a lot of fun. So what's one of your favorite Clive Barker books?
Imagica was one of my 2 favorite novels for most of my 20s. It was Imagica and Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, the ones that I would list. And I've reread Imagica. I've reread Weave World a whole bunch of times. I love the Books of Blood. Reading Secret Show, I really liked. Everville kind of like undercut it to a degree for me when it gets into like the weird sibling incest plot out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But I like the world, I really like the second world stuff, like the portal world stuff in these, like Imagica especially, but like Everville too, where they're going to, what's it called? The Metacosm.
Yeah. Sure. The Quiddity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
And the
absolutely.
Ephemeris. Yeah.
Weave World, they had a comic adaptation, but I don't think that was very successful. They ended up just squeezing that into like maybe 3 issues or something. And I really wish that someone would come up and adapt Weave World to comic book. I think that would be a tremendous ongoing series.
Yeah. The ID, I think it was IDW did the Great and Secret Show, and that to me was really good. And I kind of wish that that Weave World was done in that vein, similar to that one.
That was like art by Raphael Albuquerque or somebody like that. I remember that when it came out.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Sure. It may have been somebody else, but
yeah. Well, one thing that I have to ask you about is did you grow up in Fairbanks or go to college in Fairbanks?
I grew up in Fairbanks.
Okay.
I lived there for my first 26 winters, and that's where I got into Clive Barker and Lovecraft and stuff.
Oh, nice.
School.
So did you go to UAF also?
Yep.
Yeah,
Indeed.
me too.
Nice. What did you study?
English. I have a degree in English, but it has nothing to do with what I do now for a living.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
yeah, I'm the deputy assessor. So if you have family that's still here, they probably don't like me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair. Both my parents worked at the at UAF. My stepdad was at the Cooperative Extension Service, and my mother was secretary in the philosophy and sociology departments.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, they're both retired now.
Ryan is also the biggest Godzilla fan that I know.
Yeah, I'm impressed. Yep. Actually, I could probably. I've got some Godzilla stuff over there on that little corner shelf over there. Let's see.
Oh,
I have a couple kaiju. I've got one Godzilla. They're in the kitchen now.
oh, I see them on the shelf. Yeah, on the top shelf there.
Yeah. Well, and let's see.
Nice.
Did you get to read Godzilla in Hell, Ryan?
Yeah. I liked those. It was a really interesting premise, and I think that it's tough to make. It would be tough to make a book about Godzilla because there's no dialogue, right? It's all the writing in it was exposition or explaining what's going on, or which is also done with the art. So I imagine probably a lot of the writing. I'm no expert, but it seemed like probably a lot of the writing was describing for the artist, what they're setting up each time.
Yeah, for that one, for my issue in Godzilla in Hell, I kind of used it as a writing exercise, and I wanted to do a Godzilla story that didn't have any human characters in it. So it was just, it's just Godzilla focused. There's no dialogue. There's no internal monologue. There's no narrator. And the only sounds in it are Godzilla going "Screonk,"
Yeah.
and the monsters roaring and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was an interesting project to be involved. I got involved. Bobby Curnow, the assistant editor at IDW at the time, I pitched him a whole bunch of Godzilla stuff. So many half-baked Godzilla ideas. And they were either too similar to stuff that they'd done or were doing, or were just kind of half-baked. Like I pitched one that was actually Godzilla smashing through San Francisco and tearing through the Golden Gate Bridge and like climbing up on top of Alcatraz and smashing the prison and roaring as like its challenge to the city of San Francisco. And then they did the 2015 Godzilla movie, American Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's all this merch of Godzilla standing on top of Alcatraz, but it didn't actually make it into the movie. But I told the head of Legendary Entertainment this before the movie came out, and he just started saying, I was like, uh-oh, apparently I shouldn't do that.
Oh, okay.
I have plans. So I hope that I doubt that they, cut like Alcatraz scenes out of the movie because of me, but like, it would be kind of cool if they did and kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see that in the movie.
Were you also a big fan of The Fly? Because I think the first one that I saw, I didn't see the Vincent Price one. I originally saw the Cronenberg one that was my first exposition to the Fly story, and then I think I saw also that second one. Was that written by? Was that Mick Garris? The second Fly movie?
Mick Garris.
Yeah. Okay. And I didn't even know that there were comic books about it. So I just found out about the Outbreak today. I'm going to see if I can get that one as well. Because I always wanted to know more about that world and about, that whole experiment thing going on and where that could go in terms of exploring what the teleport pods could do. So I'll have to get into that today after our interview. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to read it. But
that's what, I don't want to it's awkward when a creator is down on their work, but that is one where I could have done a lot better.
Oh yeah.
It was the medication stuff that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Getting horrible migraines from missed a deadline. One thing. And then I was on a medication for 8 months. It just destroyed my ability to write. And I'm still trying to write the series. And it also took 8 months for me to realize that's what was going on. That's why it was so difficult. But that had some interesting stuff going on in it. The Fly Outbreak, it's a sequel to The Fly 2. Mm-hmm. And my pitch for it was, what if the fly pathogen thing becomes infectious? So I don't focus on the teleport pod.
Okay.
Focus on the transgenics of it, because at the time, in the 80s, somebody gets their DNA spliced with fly DNA was just a ridiculous science fiction concept. Of course, we'll throw teleporters in there.
Yeah.
But now it's no, we have transgenic organisms. You could end up with fly transgenes.
Right.
And actually, one of the things I did that was fun in researching that project was I have a friend who's a genetic engineer genetic engineer. And so I wrote her and was I don't know if you've seen the movie, but here's the premise. Here's how it works in the movie. I'd love to sit down with you and buy you coffee. And if you could explain some genetic engineering principles that I could randomly just, name drop in this, that would be super cool. And she came with a long list of stuff I could use, of knockout genes and all kinds of stuff, and this whole conceptual framework for how this could have happened.
And I think apart from the obvious body horror in The Fly, the fact that it could become some sort of mutated virus or something that would infect other people would make it even scarier. So there's always that, that fear.
Yeah, I actually, that came out, that would have been 2015. And then in 2020, early 2020, when, right after lockdowns had started, I got an email from an assistant to a manager in Hollywood who turned out to be, among other people, it's Taika Waititi's manager. Manages a bunch of other people too. But he was like, hey, we have a client who really likes The Fly Outbreak and who is interested in directing it. Who do we talk to about the rights? And I was like, I don't actually know. I can ask my old editors. In the meantime, are you interested in because clearly this is a outbreak quarantine kind of scenario in this comic, and that was suddenly big. And I was like, hey, I have this other biological horror project with a heroic doctor and stuff called Witch Doctor. Do you want to check that out? So I ended up having a phone call with the manager, and we were never. I don't think we were ever able to get any kind of answer about the rights.
Oh man, that would have been tremendous to adapt the Witch Doctor. That would have been awesome. That would be great as a Netflix, if you're listening to this, get someone on it.
The Witch Doctor rights at that time were very complicated. But they checked out Witch Doctor and liked it, and then wanted to see some of my other pitches, and then ghosted me in the way of it, which is the way of things.
Yeah.
Well, but that was in 2020, right? I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on back then. Maybe things would be different.
There was. Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. I've kept track of where they're at. The assistant who was my point person there has moved on to a different company.
Oh.
So, and yeah, I don't know if I have the email address for the manager. Not that I really want to bother him, but Witch Doctor rights are still complicated.
Yeah, but
yeah.
If anybody out there doesn't know the Witch Doctor, I think they really should get into the show, to the series, because I'm really enjoying a lot of it. I actually am reading some of it on Comixology.
Okay.
And yeah. And how does the Disney gig show up for Seekers?
So Seekers of the Weird, I did a project for, it was Marvel, but it was for a Disney project. And it was back in the 60s, there was a Disney attraction that was partially designed, like early stages of design, but never built because Walt died. And he was like the main motivator, like, the person who was trying to push this project through. And it was called the Museum of the Weird. And it was going to be a walkthrough attraction that after you went through the Haunted Mansion, you would go into this other thing that was like this collection of strange artifacts from around the world. And so I got in touch with an editor at Marvel in 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. And he was like, "That's funny. I was about to write you." Like, I just like cold emailed him, and he was like, "Yeah, you've been on my mind. Would you be interested in doing a project? I can't tell you what it is yet, but I can tell you it's basically Witch Doctor meets Indiana Jones." And I was like, that is so far up my alley. I'm already doing a project that is Witch Doctor meets Indiana Jones. And I sent him pages from my, like, I have a project called Supernatural Geographic that is like...
Oh, great title.
Thank you. I think you enjoy that one. It's sort of like Hermione grows up to be Laura Croft. So you've got like this sorceress who's also an archaeologist and, hunting down artifacts and sites and things that normal people can't see and that you can only really see if you have like a magical abilities. So
wow.
Atlantis and Excalibur and things like that normal people can't really perceive, and that's why we never found them. So she finds them and puts them in a museum and like protects them and shares them with the public and stuff. And I sent him like this 5 or 6 page story that me and my artist Dan Govar did for that. And I was like, I would love to do this project with you, but I want to make sure that it's not too similar to the project I'm already doing. And my editor was like, nope, I think it's fine, and brought me on for Secrets of the Weird. And so that was a 5-issue miniseries, I think, and that was super fun. That was Carl Moline, who has since passed away. He passed away earlier this year. People know his work most from Frey, which was a comic he did with Joss Whedon at Dark Horse, with like a future vampire slayer. But yeah, Carl was amazing. He's a fantastic artist, and he was just a dream to work with. And I was really looking forward to working with him on more projects. So death sucks.
So this Disney attraction that they were going to put after the Haunted Mansion, was it going to have like real artifacts, or were they going to be pretend things with made up stories?
It was props.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Not like an actual museum.
No,
it'd be like things like taxidermied like Mothman, or some coffin clock.
The coffin clock was one of the main ones. It was one of the Imagineers, one of the classic Imagineers, Raleigh Crump, had done all these weird designs with no real through line with them. And he showed them to Walt at one point, and Walt came in the next day and he was like, "I figured out what the through line is. They're artifacts in the Museum of the Weird."
Right.
And then it all just kind of fizzled when Walt passed away. But they've tried to do it as a TV show before, or as a movie before. They've tried to do a few different things with it, and then they brought me on and did the comic, and it was really fun. That was a super fun project.
Yeah, I think we've seen hints and things like that. It's a great idea to think of a museum full of artifacts, like from issues of Doctor Strange to like Hellboy and some of the artifacts they have in the background and some of the scenes in the movie. It's always been like, and the Witch Doctor, there's plenty of artifacts there as well, like the Hand of Glory and stuff like that, which is usually the hand.
the Friday the 13th TV show, wasn't that based on a museum that was full of like magical artifacts?
Like an antique store, yeah.
Yeah.
Something with artifacts.
Yeah. It's like that movie with Wishful Things or whatever, it's like
Needful Things.
Yeah, Needful Things, where all the items are kind of cursed or artifacts. So
and
that's always been a funny story.
A TV show called Warehouse 13, I think, that was similar to that.
Yep. Yeah. There's a lot of like stockpiling artifacts, like in the Indiana Jones Top Men kind of way.
Yeah.
Looking into it, and they just put it in a warehouse. I like the idea that it was like, this big museum, and it was, open. It was a place where you could go and see like the mysteries of the world for a very reasonable suggested donation.
Yeah, I think ultimately we all try to do that with our own work offices and our own houses. We try to get as much stuff as we can. I got a Pinhead pin back there. I got a whole bunch of stuff. It's just part of, like, I used to belong to a collectors association in my hometown with my brother. We organized like exhibits for people to display their collections, whatever they were. Most of them were older people who collected stamps or postcards or stuff like that. But there's people who will collect anything. There's people who collect books. There's people who collect old keys. There's people who collect the most amazing things that you would find, like little busts of saints or whatever. It's amazing what people will just latch onto and turn into their like special interest. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
did you ever
kind of got into collecting xenomorph? Xenomorph. I tried to say Xenobite, which I've said that before. Xenomorph like action figures.
Yeah.
Do you have the original 79 one?
I do. Yeah, the big.
Wow. Chunk. Yeah.
Well, I don't have the original toy, but I have a toy of him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I do. I have my most recent, I'm doing a project about, it's sort of like Alien meets Star Trek, where it's like a exploratory ship, like the Enterprise, goes out and finds this area of space that's just like every planet they go to is like weird alien parasites, and it's different parasites on every planet. So I have like a collection. I've got like a whole bunch. I've got like a dozen different xenomorph toys, and then I've got like a Tyrannid. I've got Samus Aran from Metroid. And the most recent one I got was a Brood toy from the X-Men toys from 1990. Oh
yeah, the Brood. I remember that story arc.
Yeah,
I think Wolverine gets infected with the Brood virus, doesn't he, at one point?
Yeah, they all do. Yeah. He's the one who's able to overcome it because of his healing factor.
That's right. I always thought the Brood was just kind of a schlep of the alien, but
it is.
Yeah. Was it Chris Claremont at the time that did that?
Yeah. And he liked to do that. He did two different alien pastiches. One of them was the Brood, and the other one was the Nagari. Mm-hmm. And he did two different stories with Kitty Pryde dealing with like xenomorphs.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. With the Brood. I remember that. That's good. You're making me want to go back and read my old comic books from X-Men. Yeah, that was
I
good
just found the Brood Saga collection on Hoopla from my library.
All right. Yeah. That's where you can borrow it from Hoopla, right? With the library card. Okay. I got to get into that.
Yeah, it's great. It's really good.
Did you ever get into the Marvel 90s Hellraiser comics?
I think I read a few stories. The series Bible on that is super interesting. It's like an example, a really good series Bible, and like the story, like the mythology and the world building in it is great. It's very different from the directions that the series, in its different forms have gone in.
That's right.
But it's very like, this very order versus chaos, and
there's 10,000 boxes out there made out of Leviathan, whatever. That was that series, Concepts and Guidelines for a Comic Book Series. I think it was Dan Chichester and a few other people who wrote that.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a great Bible. And they even had like a 6-issue series about Pinhead throughout history. It starts with caveman Pinhead, and it goes all the way up to
Yeah, the idea being that it's a spirit that inhabits whatever new person is the vessel for that spirit.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like an entity called Zyptotec, which is like the flayed one from Mayan mythology or something.
Yeah.
I see. Huh.
They've taken the Hellraiser series into many different directions in the comic book world, which is always fascinating to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. What do you guys think of the most recent Hellraiser movie, the reboot?
I loved it.
I loved it too. Yeah,
I do. And that actually, I found that really inspiring. I have another project that's like Witch Doctor, but it's like on a larger scale. So like it's based in a hospital, and it's like the supernatural medicine wing of the hospital. But there's also like a 1,000-year backstory. And like I was working on that at the time, and I saw that movie, and I came up with this whole like, it's like The Surgeons, like it's my new take on Cenobites, a medical horror setting, but it's completely different from what I'd done before.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. That's the scariest stuff you can come up with. Yeah. But I really enjoyed the work that was put into the new designs, the way that they're not wearing leather costumes. They're actually, their skin is cut up and fashioned and tailored to look like their costume.
So it turned inside out to make an outfit kind of thing.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool and like very in keeping with the Hellbound heart in some way. The original Hellraiser was not. And like I still love like the leather designs, but like I loved the new designs.
They're working on there's talk that there's a sequel in the works with Hulu. So we're waiting on more news on that, but I think they would really do well in releasing that in a Blu-ray format or something. I know that streaming platforms, they want to keep that stuff in their little walled garden, but I think they would make a killing if they would put out a really good Blu-ray edition of that movie.
Well, and if they don't, somebody's just going to make a pirate version eventually.
That's true. Yeah. That's the problem with streaming nowadays, is that sometimes you're just you can't really have it in your living room. If they decide to take it out of the platform, that's it. You're never going to see that again. Or
if you can't pay for the platform anymore because you're spending $400 a month on all of these different.
That's right.
Yeah, so one of my friends was telling me about all these great shows on Netflix. I'm like, I haven't had Netflix in at least 3 years because I've got Max, Hulu, Disney Plus, and I can't, and Amazon Prime. And I can't justify a fifth service.
Yeah.
Well, and my Netflix is $20 a month, and I just realized that they have a 4K available, but you have to pay more for the 4K.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're the only ones that do that. Everybody else just naturally upgraded over time. But Netflix makes you pay for the different, resolutions, which I don't agree with.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoy that new Hellraiser. I think it took the series in a very different direction, but it also was kind of a soft reboot, which is the style now, is to not do hard reboots anymore. It's just to try to come up with a different concept, but still keep in line with the rest of the stuff. Or sometimes you just make a direct sequel to the first movie of a franchise and ignore everything that happened in between. But I think David Bruckner was amazing in the direction that he took this movie in. And I can't wait to see more of these new Cenobites. That's
me too.
Every time they bring a new franchise back from the dead, usually they make one movie and then radio silence for years. And like they did Candyman. I would like to see another Candyman.
I would like to see another Candyman.
Yeah, I know. It's like, but are you going to make another one, or is someone just going to soft reboot it again in like 5 years? That's what I feel.
I kind of feel like now that Tony Todd is gone, that probably Candyman is gone. I mean, I know he wasn't a star of the last movie. He was a cameo, but I think even still, his spirit kind of carried that franchise. And it might be difficult to make another one now.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. I used to say the same thing about Christopher Reeve's Superman, but now I'm kind of excited about the new Superman.
I still like the Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
I like
shot a lot of that in
Superman
Cleveland.
Returns. I thought that was pretty good too, but they only made one movie with him, and then that was the end.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it sounds like you got a lot of projects on your plate right now. What else do we have to expect coming soon?
Yeah, is there anything you can tell us about? Because probably a lot of it's still under wraps.
I kind of perpetually have a lot of projects that I'm working on. It got harder and harder for me to keep getting work in comics. And 2015, Godzilla in Hell was actually the last new comics issue that I did. I did a 12-issue series since then, but I don't think the publisher is ever going to publish it. It's written and drawn, but it's been 4 years since we finished writing and drawing it, and they've made no move to publish it and won't give me any information. So that's awesome. Hoping that would like revitalize my career, but like not so much. So I have I have ADHD and I have a lot of projects, and the issue is kind of getting them to finished shape.
Yeah.
I mentioned Supernatural Geographic with Dan Govar.
Yeah.
Which he's just waiting on me. He's been waiting on me for like 12, 14 years, something like that, somewhere in there. 12 years, I think. And it's a series that I love, and it's a series that I see very clearly, except for the first issue. And I think I might have figured out the first issue last night, finally, and like cobbled together pieces of drafts that actually work together. So there's that one, which is like a urban fantasy adventure kind of thing. I mentioned the Star Trek and Alien thing. Its working title is Xenohazard. That's the thing I've been working on this fall. I have like 15 projects, and those are like my top tier things.
Sure. Wow.
Yeah, no, it's kind of unwieldy.
It's hard sometimes to fight ADHD and get yourself to do things that you know you have to do, and instead of being able to complete it, it just weighs on you every single day, and you're like, well, I really need to finish that, but it's hard.
Weighing on you is part of the problem. Yeah, it's and it's ridiculous. It feels ridiculous because like these are all projects I love.
Mm-hmm.
These are all projects I want to do.
Yeah.
Why am I not doing them? And it's like, well, I kind of know the answer to that. Like it's, brain condition.
Yeah. It's that executive dysfunction.
Yep. No,
it's really hard. We had a lot of stuff that we would love to do, but sometimes it seems like the time does not, is never enough. And at least I spend a lot more time thinking about doing things than actually doing them, which is,
for me, like I get lost in world building, and so it's like build out for a year.
Because you start building the world, and then you start living inside the world instead of writing about the world.
Yeah. So that's like I'm trying to. I have a pitch for Xenohazard that I need to finish up because I've got an artist on that one too. And let's see, anything else I can talk about? As far as horror goes, I have two different projects that are like Star Trek meets major horror franchise. And the Xenohazard is Star Trek meets Alien, and I have another one called Astrophobia, which is Star Trek meets Lovecraft.
All right.
Our first exploratory starship. Like we have one starship that we managed to build with a drive that an alien star drive that we salvaged, and we send it out into the universe to explore for the first time, and we discover the universe is terrible. It's all dead planets and inscrutable alien species that seem to want to kill us or just won't talk to us, and godlike super intelligences as far as you can see out into the night sky.
Wow.
And that one's fun. Astrophobia. That one's actually going to be an audio drama. I have a lot of pieces.
All right.
I have a theme song for it. I have like
cool
voice actor for the main character.
Neat.
Yeah.
Would that be something like
Audible?
On Audible?
That would probably be initially. It would be on general podcast platforms.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know how podcasting works on Audible. Like I know a lot of podcasts.
Oh, it's just another destination. You can any podcast can end. Ours is on there too.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Yeah, then it'll be on Audible. Yeah, it'll definitely.
Yeah.
Anywhere you listen to podcasts, I'm sure it'll end up.
Oh, that'll be
great.
neat. We'll be looking forward to that. I definitely want to check it out.
Thank you. Yeah, we did a test, like a demo reading at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival here in Portland this fall, and that was really fun.
I've also been a big fan of Lovecraft. I've recently started getting these manga adaptations of Lovecraft by this Japanese artist, Gu Tanabe. I just read one that was the Shadow over Innsmouth,
Okay. Yeah.
which was really good. I do recommend those. I think you can find those. They're pretty thick mangas, like 350 page plus, but it was pretty amazing. I do recommend those by Gu Tanabe. They did the Dunwich Horror, the Mountains of Madness, the Shadow over Innsmouth. It's really good stuff. If you're into Lovecraft and manga, which I wasn't really a manga guy, but I started reading that. It's really good.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. So
Cool.
Are you reading anything right now? Do you have any recommendations?
What am I reading right now? I mostly listen to audiobooks, and I tend to listen to the same ones over and over. The one that would be germane to this podcast is there's a horror novella. It's called We Are All Completely Fine by Daryl Gregory. And it is, it's a therapy group for survivors of supernatural horror events in a universe where, like our universe, where, that people don't think that's a thing. That's not real. So these are people with PTSD who no one else will believe. And so you've got the last survivor of the tragedy at Dunsmouth.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you've got my favorite. I think my favorite is there's a monster in this called the Scrimshander. Do you know what Scrimshaw is? Mm-hmm. Traditionally, it's carvings on whalebone.
Yeah.
The Scrimshander doesn't use.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he cuts you open and inscribes prophetic visions into your living bones.
Oh
wow!
Almost like the Book of Blood a little bit.
Yeah, yep, it's like that, but it's on your bones, so you can't actually see.
So that's even scarier.
Yeah, no, he's one of my favorite like horror characters.
So do his victims survive?
Most of the time they don't. One of the characters in the novella, paramedics found her in time, and they were able to stitch her up and keep her alive. And so this is like 40 years later.
Oh, wow.
And she's really curious what it wrote on her bones.
Sounds like she needed to visit Dr. Vincent Morrow.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah.
I wonder if someone could see that with an MRI or something, or an X-ray.
They actually go into what you can and can't see with different scanning technologies.
Oh, really?
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know the details. X-ray doesn't show it. Ultrasound is too imprecise.
Yeah,
but yeah, she's checked them all out, and she's not able to see any of them.
I just realized that Scrimshaw is something my dad had in his office. There was a whale tooth that was carved with a poem and the whaler's coat of arms. I think it might have been from Nantucket. Now that I think
you're talking about probably a baleen, right? The long thing that.
No, it was what I saw was a tooth.
Okay.
Yeah, what he had was a tooth.
Yeah.
It was just a tooth from a whale.
Okay.
But I don't know. It was like this big.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it was from one of those blue whales because those have those brushy kind of things.
Yeah.
So I think this might have been a smaller whale, like maybe a different kind of whale.
Toothed whales are a thing. I don't remember which ones are toothed whales besides. Killer whales are not technically whales. So, yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, they're not? That's news to me.
Not. I lost bar trivia one night.
Oh, yeah. I love that stuff.
So are they more related to like dolphins?
Yeah, they're like big porpoises, basically.
But they're predators. Well, I guess I guess porpoises and dolphins are too. They just eat fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just eat smaller fish, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye out for those future projects. Xenohazard. And thanks so much for joining us and talking a little bit about your experience writing comics.
We have a link to your website on our show notes too. And is there anywhere else where people can
Blue Sky, right?
Check out your work?
Yeah, it's my website is the main one. That's, social media and stuff can, varies.
Yeah.
Right now I've gotten the website, I'm on Blue Sky, I have a Facebook profile, like a professional, comics writer Facebook profile. And then I've also got a Discord community.
Oh yeah, right. I just joined that a couple.
The Brandonomicon.
Yeah, Brandonomicon. Yeah,
I joined today. Yeah,
good, excellent. Yeah, I post so much about my in progress projects on there. I post probably way more than I should, but I don't know. What else am I going to do? I'm not
sure.
Not worried about people stealing stuff from me. If they do, they do. And I just want to talk about what I have going on. So
that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we're looking forward to you keeping us abreast of those projects through Brandonomicon. And if you want to drop us a line, just send us an email or a message. We'll be glad to have you on the show again if you have anything else you'd like to talk about or plug.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
All right.
This was great. Yeah, and actually him talking about social media reminded me that I have removed our account from Twitter or X. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I might have Occupy Midian still on there just because I have to look up the password again to be able
You mean like you deleted the account or just stopped using it?
I deactivated them.
Oh, so that takes away all the tweets?
I don't know if that deletes the accounts or what it does, but I just don't.
I
went on there and it was like all the stuff that it was telling me to follow was like stuff that I wasn't interested in. Like this is like, here's your news feed, and it's all this crap that they wanted me to look at instead of things that people that I follow.
Yeah, it looks like once you deactivate it, it says the account doesn't exist. So okay. I guess good riddance to X.
Update the website to take all the links for Twitter away, I guess.
Well, I mean, we didn't really post anything on Twitter apart from links to the episodes that were coming out, right? I mean, were you engaging with other people or talking about particular things there?
I think the people that I was engaging with are all gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Mark and people like that.
Yeah, I retweeted a lot. I used to once a week I'd go on Twitter to post our episode, and then I would check in and I would see all the stuff from all of the people that we care about, and I would retweet stuff. But now there's none of that there, and if it's there, I can't find it because they put so much crap in my feed that I can't even find the people that are important to me.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of a bummer. But I just felt like, why support that anymore?
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, I don't use mine. Haven't used for years now.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that ESC release.
Yeah. So ESC, the French company, has talked about putting out, and we briefly mentioned this before, putting out a 4K version of Nightbreed. And so, but what I've discovered just from reading through this and the website's in French, so I don't know French, but I did the best that I could. But what I understand is that the original movie is in 4K, the theatrical version, but the director's cut they upscaled it from the HD version. And so I kind of feel like we don't need a company to do that for us, because you put a Blu-ray in a 4K player and it's going to upscale it to fit on your 4K TV. You don't need them to do that for you and make a fake 4K Blu-ray disc.
Yeah, I think what they're doing is probably the same thing that they did for that, Underworld back here. Is like some parts of it that are from the theatrical are probably going to be in 4K, but the parts that are new are probably upscaled from 1080p, right?
What do you mean about Underworld?
Well, this one, right? I mean, it's supposed to be 4K Ultra HD, but there's scenes, there's bits of the movie that clearly have been upscaled. They don't have the grain.
I don't think so. I thought the whole thing was all 4K. From that they rescanned the negatives.
Right, but I think
some of
there's
the
parts
negatives
the
probably
movie-
looked like crap to start with, but you
Right.
know, but
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So that's what I got out of it. That I thought that some of it looks very grainy, very 4K, but then there was parts of the movie that didn't seem like they were 4K. I mean, didn't seem like they scanned a negative in 4K. It looks like they just upscaled some bits and pieces here and there that were probably not 4K. So you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I don't know. I don't think they had 4K to begin with for parts of the director's cut because, like you told me one time, they scanned the stuff they found in that storage was scanned to 1080p. I think that's what everybody told us when they were doing the director's cut.
Yep, they sure did.
Unless they went back and got that
10 years
stuff.
ago. So 10 years ago, 4K wasn't as big as it is now. And so they scanned it to HD, which is what they felt more comfortable being able to edit in.
Right.
And then they had to also import some VHS, little bits of VHS into it.
The ESC Editions website does say that the film is in a theatrical and director's cut, in Ultra HD, 4K Dolby Vision, and HDR10 in Blu-ray, with some unreleased bonus like Danny Elfman they misspelled Elfman. Okay, Danny Elfman on screen. Interview with Olivier Desbrosses, probably some French interviewer that interviewed Danny Elfman for this one. Audio commentary by Clive Barker, Mark Allen Miller. So this is the stuff that we already had.
Yeah.
In this, right? In the big box.
In the Scream Factory, right.
Yeah.
And probably
Making
also
monsters.
the subsequent Arrow version, a lot of that same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they have the Tribes of the Moon, the Making Monsters, deleted and alternative scenes, monster prosthetics, fires, fights, stunts, which is also on that big box of Nightbreed. And then matte painting tests, makeup tests, rehearsal and tests. I'm not entirely sure this was also in that, but I think it was, right? Yeah. Torture scenes, lost stop motion scene, original trailer, and French trailer.
And we know exactly what that stop motion scene is, right? Because it's probably the one that Phil and Sarah had on their website. Yeah.
The
Mezikmul and Diadara, I think.
Yeah. And then, so it's like a steelbook, right? With 3 different discs. I'm gonna guess it's a disc for the theatrical, a disc for the director's cut, and a disc for extras.
Yeah, and the disc with the extras is a regular 1080p Blu-ray, and the first 2 are 4K. But
if you're French,
to actually make a 4K version of the director's cut, they probably would need to rescan all the footage and then re-edit the movie, and so it'd be a whole totally different cut of the movie if they did that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be just the theatrical and the director's cut we all know, except now probably in a different transfer and put into 4K. But I don't believe that all of the director's cut is scanned in 4K from the negatives. I think, like you said, some of it might be upscaled. The theatrical edition...
I think they just upscaled the whole movie from 1080p to 4K.
Right. Well, we can get into that. We can try to get more information from that.
Somebody already said they saw that on the ESC website that's what they did. Yeah,
all right,
in one of the comments.
Yeah, but that's pretty much the only bit of news that we have to add to the show today.
Well, there was one other thing
technical
also
one,
I wanted to bring up. Yeah, is that Samsung Podcasts, which they had a native app that was on the Samsung version of Android. Mm-hmm. They've discontinued it on December 1st. So anybody that will listen to us on there, you probably find something else. I like, what is the one that I use? Why can't I think of it? Overcast. That's what it is. Overcast.
Oh,
that's a multi-platform version you can use on iPhone or Android phones. That's a good podcast player. When Apple added some features or changed their way around the way that the Apple Podcast worked, I stopped using it and I started using Overcast, which I like better.
This is an interesting conversation. I like to use Spotify for podcasts.
Oh,
But some podcasts that I subscribe to for the premium content, I use Acast, which is another app that you can subscribe to some premium contact material for some of those podcasts. So I usually listen to things on Spotify or Acast. Yeah, I didn't even know Samsung Podcast was a thing, to be honest.
yeah. Well, there was also Google Podcast that was native Android app.
That's right.
And they took that away. So that's
Yeah,
also
Google-
gone.
Google keeps creating new things, and then a year later, or whatever, it just
Yeah, they
takes
chuck
it
'em.
down. I remember Google Wave. I remember Google Plus. I remember
Yeah.
Google Podcasts. And now that's
what
nothing.
was the name of the Google chat thing that was like Zoom?
Oh, yeah, Hangouts.
Google Hangouts. Yeah, that's gone. Right.
Yeah,
that
that's what
that
we
was
used
overly
to-
complicated too. I remember
know.
that we Nicholas Vince would do his chattering with Nicholas Vince on Google Hangouts.
That's
And
right.
there were-
And I
I
think
was
you
having
could-
some kind of technical problems getting on one time, and he got kind of mad.
Yeah, and I think you could record the Hangout and then put it up on YouTube on your channel.
Yeah.
It would directly send that. But that's also something that they took out. Now it's Google
Yeah.
Voice. I don't even know, man. It's like there's so many
Yeah.
things nowadays. Back in
Yeah.
the day where we used to use FTP to upload our little website and
Yeah.
just you could type things and put animated GIFs on your page. And now it's like
Yeah.
basically you can stream your life if you want to. You just
Right.
need to have the right hardware.
Yeah. So we'd be interested if anybody wants to tell us, where do you listen to our podcast? I'd like to know, I get statistics from Libsyn, but I'd like to hear from our, listeners, the people who, care enough to write back to us. Where do you listen?
I still have our podcast app.
Yeah, oh yeah. Right.
It still works.
That the Apple version doesn't work anymore.
No, that sucks.
Yeah. And we did get some feedback. So from YouTube, this is such small print. I should have made this bigger print. I cut out the person's name by accident. But this person said, these are awesome books. He's talking about the Imaginer books. Would love to see short flip-through videos of others in the series. I'll be buying at least a few of them in the near future regardless, but it's strange there are no other such videos on YouTube that would help buyers get an impression of how those look. Anyway, thank you for this. So what do you think about doing that, like making a short video where we've flipped through the Imaginer books?
Well, I mean, we can't flip through every page, obviously, but
Yeah.
I guess we could show a few of the volumes if that would help people get more into the whole Imaginer series from the Clive Barker archive. I wouldn't be opposed to grabbing some of them and flipping through some and showing them what the cover looks like, what's the texture, what's the pages and all that. I guess we could. I did that once for one of the Imaginer books for the second one. So I guess I could also send that person a link to that video because I did flip through that book, but that was the deluxe edition, which is I don't want to
misrepresent case and
misrepresent
everything.
Yeah, with the tray case. It was from Udo Padrick 9971, and he posted that 4 weeks ago. Well, that's an interesting thing. I guess next time we do a podcast episode on video, we can probably just flip through one and show that and give people a link to buy them at the Clive Barker archive.
Yeah. And then, of course, Eric Van de Holt wrote to us. He said, great episode. And what a nice discovery, Zoopocalypse.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's true. We really should cover that in our near future. And of course, this is our last episode of 2024. I should mention, right? So, Happy New Year's to everybody. We're planning our season 14 right now, and our first episode will be our typical 2024 in review. So we're going to start thinking about all the things that happened in 2024 things we liked, things we didn't like.
Certainly.
Yeah. And one thing that we could cover is Zoopocalypse next year.
Absolutely. That's that's what Joe Manco from Little Spark Films kind of hooked us on that, pointed us in that direction, that it was based on a Clive Barker concept, and then it kind of changed and ended up being rewritten, and It's a meteor that unleashes a virus that turns zoo animals into mutants, where there's a mountain lion voiced by David Harbour and a wolf voiced by Gabby Cosmides.
Yeah.
Leads a team of surviving animals to stop the virus and rescue their zoo. Even though it's marginally connected to Clive, I guess, we should probably take a look at that and see if we can find more information.
It keeps making me think of, do you know the show Get a Life? I don't know if you've ever seen that. But it was like a guy who lived with his parents and he was like in his 40s. But anyway, he had this idea of making a musical and he called it Zoo Animals on Wheels. And it was like they would roller skate around. Anyway, Mutant Zoo Animals just makes me think of Zoo Animals on Wheels. They probably don't have wheels, though, I imagine.
I vaguely remember something like that. Was it the same comedian that was in Something About Mary?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. To me, Zoopocalypse reminds me of Zoo Men, that one exhibit where Clive was painting people. Yeah, I always think about that when I hear zoo in relation to Clive. I always think of Zoo Men, which I think was one of those things where Mark Miller ended up being involved in that at one point, I think.
Right, yeah.
But cool, Zoopocalypse. We'll have to get into that and see if we can find more information about that.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. It was nice talking to Brandon Seifert. We probably should have had him on like way back in 2014 when those comics were coming out. 10 years ago.
That's right.
Yeah. We can't think of everything, I guess.
I know. It's we still have a lot of people that we'd like to talk to and bring back to the episodes, but time doesn't stretch, and sometimes like we're now in 2015, 2025. I mean, 2025. Geez. Yeah. But I hope you guys had great holidays. One of the stories that I recommend reading around this time is Lost Souls from Clive Barker, because it's a great story, a great Christmas themed story. And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. You can chat with us on our Facebook BarkerCast listeners group, our Facebook page, Twitter, or our Discord server. The best way to support us is to buy our book, The BarkerCast Interviews, Occupy Midian, available in hardcover on Amazon and ebook on Amazon and Apple Books. Fundraiser 10 is all about Patreon this year. Become a patron to get access to exclusive stuff, pick an episode topic, and maybe even get cool stuff in the mail. You can also buy a t-shirt on our TeePublic store. Go to teepublic.com and search for BarkerCast. Leave a message for us using the SpeakPipe link on our blog. Opening and ending music generously provided by Ray Norrish.
Thanks for listening.